Hi, my name is Michaela, and I'm going to be talking about our chapter 2 book and the three things I found interesting and confusing as well. So let me share my screen real fast and we'll get started. Okay, so first up, I talked about on page 27 of our book where it talks about child poverty. I quoted where it says more than 9 million of the nation's school-age children live below the official poverty line. And I just circled that and put an exclamation mark because I thought that was super interesting and super like that stunned me hearing 9 million children in the nation are living in poverty level, and that just sucks for the kids because when they're talking about the low poverty being in low poverty classes, it makes them not learn as well and makes them slower, and I just feel that's really sad for kids. And I felt like that was such a high number. And talking about the low level, it kind of reminded me that I kind of went to a low level poverty middle school. It's definitely the lower levels of middle schools in the area that I went to. And so it made me remember that, like, at one point I was like one of those kids in low level poverty, and it just hit me in that point, and I felt for those kids who were in that point. And it just made me wonder, and I tried looking into it, but I couldn't find an exact answer. But it made me wonder, and maybe if anyone else here knows, it makes me wonder how many poverty level kids there are here in Tri-Cities for us. And like I just want to know the numbers. I feel like that's so interesting to know like the numbers of the kids that are around us, how many of them like need lunches and don't get lunches. And I just feel like that's so sad. My next one was from page 31. It was quoted when they're talking about learning disabilities, and they're talking about how learning disabilities are looked at and seen if kid has learning disability or not. It said that kids who have problem using language to learn have a language disability. When it said that, it kind of put me at a stop, and I put a huge question mark around that because I was super confused because it made me think of English language learner students and how we're talking about in our ELL class book about how kids who are English language learners are sometimes thought of as having learning disabilities, and so they look at them and see if they have a learning disability or if they're actually English language learners and they're just like faltered with the English. And so hearing that and having them say that like all kids who have difficulties using language to learn have a learning disability just made me confused because it made me like feel like they're counterfaulting what we are learning in our other textbook about ELLs and language learning disabilities and how they're different. And it just made me feel like this book just said they're the same. And so it was just very, very weird to hear and it confused me. And then finally on page 36, I talked about, or I quoted, it says one program that works exceptionally well with the gifted is Junior Great Books. And I love being able to read about this because I've never, in my point, I've never heard about this. And I think it's such a great way for kids who are gifted. They don't think of themselves as being the same because they have to read at such a high level, higher than the kids in their own classrooms. And so I felt like they might feel bad or feel like maybe stupid or feel like they're different. And I feel like having a program like this teaches the kids who are gifted that they're not different and there's other kids like them. I just found that was so cool that they get to sit down and go to a club or going to like a classroom and meet with other kids who are gifted and they can talk about books on their education level and they can talk about what that book meant and how they know that. And I just think that's so cool that there's an opportunity for gifted kids to be able to talk about books because books are like a great thing for kids for learning wise for words and grammar. And that's how I learned most of my grammar as a kid was through books. I read like all summer. I was one of those kids who read all summer. And I just think books are the best way to learn words and learn English better. So having kids have a club about reading books and talking about them is just a great thing for me. And it makes me wonder if anyone knows if we have junior great books or a club like that here in Tri-Cities because I've never heard of that. And I am so curious to myself if there's a group or like a sponsorship or something here that does that. And so that is very short and sweet. That is my presentation. Thanks so much for watching.